Welcome, tankers, to the Ground Nation Guide for War Thunder. In this episode, we'll be going over the German tank tree. The full playlist with all the episodes is linked below.
German tanks are some of the most infamous and notorious vehicles in the game, with the Tiger, Panther, Leopard and many more. With an emphasis on firepower and armor, the World War II German tank doctrine is appealing to many, and with some of the best top tier vehicles as well, it's obvious why Germany is one of the most popular nations. But is it the right one for you? Let's find out. The tech tree is split into 5 lines: the self-propelled anti-tank line, the heavy and medium tank lines, the self-propelled anti-aircraft line, and lastly the case-made tank destroyer line. Unlike the versatile American tanks, the German tank tree focuses on a handful of tactics with sniping at the forefront. The German tech tree starts off with reserve and rank 1 vehicles. First of all, you have the light tanks, which consists of the Panzer 35 and 38T. These Czech designs are similar to most other tier 1 tanks, featuring great mobility, a fast firing cannon, but pretty much no armor. Because of their lack of protection, it's best to use their speed to their advantage and flank your enemy. They all feature shoulder stabilizers, which makes firing on the move a bit easier. And the APHE shells should be enough to deal with most enemies, but be sure to load up a couple of APCR shells just in case. In the first medium tank line, we have the Panzer III and its early variants, namely Ausführung B, E, F and J. These 4 are similar to the Panzer 38Ts, but they improve on pretty much everything. Like other tanks they face, they have great mobility and quick firing cannons, but a distinct lack of armor. The F and J variants also get the upgrade to the 50mm cannon, so if you're focused on supporting or flanking, you shouldn't have any issues. One issue worth mentioning is the lackluster turret traverse. If you get caught by a flanker, you might run into some problems, so avoid tight urban environments and keep an eye out for enemies on your sides. Like with previous lines, if you face some heavier opponents, your APCR shells can deal with most of them, but the great APCHE shells should be your go-to option. In the second medium tank line, we have the early variants of the Panzer IV, as well as the light tank Panzer II. Let's start with the IIs. Instead of a conventional tank cannon, the Panzer II C and F feature 20mm autocannons that can absolutely shred the light tanks they face. The key to using them effectively is to aggressively get close to the enemy and blast them with a barrage of APCR shells. The Panzer IVs, on the other hand, feature a short-barreled 75mm Kampfwagenkanone 37. This cannon has a very low muzzle velocity, which can make aiming at distances rather tricky, but if you unlock its heat shells, you can take out pretty much anything at your BR. Combine that with its very fast reload and you can take out one enemy after another. It's very much a glass cannon though, so use it as a support tank behind some of your allies. Next, in the SPAA line, we have quite the lineup: the Flakpanzer I, Flakpanzer 38 and the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 222 and 6-2. While these 4 might be classified as SPAAs, they're extremely capable of being used as anti-tank vehicles as well. The first 3 vehicles feature the 20mm autocannon, similar to the one found on the Panzer II, and if you load up on HVAP belts, you can tear enemy light tanks to pieces. The 222 is especially dangerous, as it also has a top speed of 90 km an hour, making it an excellent flanking vehicle. Shooting down aircraft won't be too difficult either, as their high muzzle velocity and high fire rates allow you to light up the sky with bullets. The Sonderkraftfahrzeug 6-2 takes a different approach. Instead of the rapid-firing small-caliber cannon, it features a 37mm Flugabwehrkanone instead. It's pretty fast and the penetration values are decent as well, making it a versatile anti-everything vehicle like the previous 3. One thing they do have in common though is their complete lack of effective armor, as even light machine guns can take you out in a matter of seconds. That being said, they're great vehicles capable of playing a number of roles, but be careful when using them. Lastly, we have the tank destroyer line with the Sturmpanzer II, Sonderkraftfahrzeug 221, Panzerjäger 1, Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251-9, Marder 3 and Sturmgeschütz 3 Ausführung A. We'll do a speed round since there are a lot of vehicles to talk about. The Sturmpanzer II is a derp cannon, plain and simple. Stay behind your allies, obliterate any tank with a 15 cm high explosive round, wait and cover until your reload is done, and repeat. The 221, or the Squeezy Boy as the cool kids call it, features a unique squeeze bore cannon with great penetration for its battle rating. It also features some excellent mobility as well, making it a highly effective flanking vehicle. It only features APCR though, and a single shot to the gunner can take the entire vehicle out. The Panzerjäger 1 is slower than the 221, but features a more powerful 47mm cannon with APHE rounds. It's a great tank to help you understand how the later tank destroyers are meant to be played. Keep your distance and snipe enemies from afar. The 251-9 is an interesting one, with a good top speed and the same 75mm as an early Panzer IV model. Flanking ambushing is where this vehicle excels, but like any tank in this line, stay out of sight and avoid getting shot. The Marder 3 improves on the Panzerjäger 1 with a devastating 76mm PaK-36R cannon of Russian origin. This vehicle is a one-shot machine, even against some heavier opponents, but the armor situation is pretty much the same as on the Panzerjäger 1. Lastly, we have the venerable Stück 3 Ausführung A, which also features a 75mm short cannon. Think of it like a slower Panzer IV without a turret and some okay-ish armor. Load up the same effective heat shells, stay behind your allies, and provide fire support. Next up, we have Tier 2, where the tanks get a big upgrade in firepower. In the first tank destroyer line, we have the Puma, Dicker Max and Sturer Emil. The Sonderkraftfahrzeug 234-2 is an iconic armored car, feared by its opponents, loved by its users. With a top speed of 90 km/h in both forward and reverse gear, you can zoom around the battlefield with ease. Combine that with its punchy 50mm cannon and you have the perfect rat vehicle at your disposal. Armor, especially on the sides and rear, is non-existent though. Enemy 50 cals and aircraft will turn you into Swiss cheese. Flanking and ambushing is the way to go. On the other hand, we have the Dicker Max and Sturer Emil. These two are the first open top tank destroyers in this line with the most powerful guns at their BR, that being a 105 and 128mm cannon respectively. This might be a bit of a double-edged sword however, as you can overpen some of the lighter vehicles you face. Now the armor situation is similar to the Puma, if not worse, as these two have exposed crew members in the back. Mobility is the complete opposite though, with poor top speeds and bad acceleration. That's why staying far away from the front line is of utmost importance. They both feature some of the best gun depression in game, so if you manage to get to a high ground, you can snipe your enemies and keep yourself safe.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my...
The first medium tank line contains the Panzer III Ausführung J1, Ausführung L and Ausführung M variants. These three are very similar to their Tier 1 counterparts, but with even further upgraded armor and firepower, that being the 50mm Kampfwagenkanone 39. This cannon is enough to deal with some enemies, but you might have trouble against heavier ones. Thanks to their decent mobility though, you can flank to a certain extent if needed. The armor is adequate, especially when angled, but should not be relied on. They are great support vehicles, so get them behind some of your heavier allies and help them out. In the second medium tank line, we have the Panzer IV Ausführung F2, Ausführung G, Ausführung H and Ausführung J. In the right hands, these are some very great medium tanks that can deal with pretty much any tank at their BRs. They all feature the 75mm Kampfwagenkanone 40 cannon, and the latter two models get the upgraded L48 variant of the gun, featuring a longer barrel. The Panzergranate 39 APHE shells they feature are an absolute joy to use, as they have both great penetration as well as explosive filler mass, meaning that you'll one-shot pretty much anything you pen. The only downside of the cannon is its subpar turret traverse, which can lead to some sticky situations. The armor isn't terrible, but enemies with decent cannons won't have much trouble taking you out, especially if they have APHE shells. They have some decent-ish mobility though, so you can get to a vantage point before the main action starts. Each model has better armor than the one before, but also noticeably worse mobility. Staying out of sight and using cover, you'll rack up some kills with ease. Next in the SPA line, we have the Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251-21. Compared to the single autocannon setup of the previous anti-air vehicles, this one has 3 15mm MG 151-15 machine guns. Along with this, it also has a decent top speed and dedicated HVAP belts. The armor is obviously lacking due to its half-track nature, but that's to be expected. It's an effective vehicle for both anti-air and light anti-tank purposes, but it's definitely overshadowed by the next following vehicles. Lastly, in the second tank destroyer line, we have the Marder 3 Ausführung H, the Sturmhaubitze 42G, and the Sturmgeschütz 3 Ausführung F and Ausführung G. The Marder 3 Ausführung H is essentially the same as the Marder 3, but with a slightly better 75mm PAC gun and a better superstructure design that protects the crew from small caliber machine guns. It's still very much a glass cannon though, so play it like its predecessor. Next is the Sturmhaubitze 42G. As the name suggests, the Sturmhaubitze features a howitzer instead of a regular cannon. This drastically changes its playstyle from a sniper to a close-range assault gun. The deadly 105mm howitzer can take lots of opponents down with its heat shells, but it has a quite low muzzle velocity, so your best bet is to support your allies and provide fire support. The Sturmgeschütz 3 Ausführung F and Ausführung G are classic case-made tank destroyers with the same 75mm guns found on the Panzer IV. Armor on the Ausführung F is not the best, but the Ausführung G has some pretty good frontal armor. Due to the casemate design and lack of armor on the sides, you always need to keep an eye out for flankers though. Staying at medium to long ranges from the front lines is the way to go. Next we have Tier 3, which is where the tech tree really starts to take shape. In the self-propelled anti-tank line, we have the Flak 88, M44, Nashorn, and the Waffenträger. The Flak truck completely lacks proper armor, but features the deadly 88mm Flak 37. With up to 150mm of penetration, you can easily take care of anything at this BR, but you have to be careful while using it. Enemy machine guns and aircraft will absolutely make quick work of you, so you have to both conceal yourself and keep your distance. As for the M44, it's the same as the American version, with a 155mm howitzer derp gun and no armor. It's good for a couple of meme kills, but it doesn't have much practical use. The Nashorn and Waffenträger are more interesting vehicles, both featuring the devastating PAC 43 8.8cm cannon with more than 20cm of penetration on their APHE shells. Both of these tanks are pretty similar to each other. Their main difference is that the Nashorn is very tall and lacks a traversable turret, while the Waffenträger has a very low profile as well as a fully rotating turret. Their armor situation is pretty much the same as the Flak truck. You absolutely need to make sure to stay away from the main action and set up camp in a concealed spot. Next up we have the heavy tank line with the infamous Tiger 1, Ausführung H and Ausführung E. The Tiger is a formidable tank, boasting some great armor as well as a powerful cannon, that being the legendary 8.8cm Kampfwagenkanone 36. The key to using the Tiger effectively is angling. Its frontal hull armor is easily penetrable, but if you angle the tank so that the edge of the hull is facing the enemy, you will be nearly impenetrable when facing kinetic ammunition. Rushing to the front line is therefore not advised. You should keep a bit of distance and face your enemies at an angle. Thanks to their powerful cannons, sniping is an absolutely viable strategy. The main difference between the 1 Ausführung H and Ausführung E is that the latter features slightly better armor, a smaller cupola, a slightly more powerful engine, and access to APCR shells, although they are rarely needed. Speaking of mobility, both of these tanks are decently fast for heavy tanks, but enemy mediums can definitely outrun you. If you get flanked, you're pretty much done for. That's why keeping your distance is important. Embrace the sniper playstyle and enjoy seeing enemy shells plink off of you harmlessly. Following heavy tanks, we have the German medium tanks, with the VK 3002 prototype tank and Panther Ausführung D. The Versuchskonstruktion 30.02 is a prototype of the Panther series, with slightly worse armor but a lot better mobility. It's pretty much a glass cannon, but thanks to its powerful 75mm Kampfwagenkanone 42, you can deal with enemies from far away. The armor is pretty thin though, certain enemies can even pen your upper frontal plate, so try and avoid getting spotted and you'll be good to go. The finished product, that being the Panther Ausführung D, is more versatile though. In terms of armor, it's sort of an opposite to the Tiger, with excellent hull protection, but very vulnerable gun mantlet. This gets rid of the need for angling. Instead, you have to somehow hide your turret, and you'll be fine. The extra frontal armor allows you to brawl or support, but make sure to stick with your allies. Both the VK and the Panzerausführung D have awful turret rotation speed, so if an enemy manages to flank you, you're probably gonna die. Medium to long range sniping is recommended for these two tanks, but as previously stated, the Panther can be used as a versatile medium tank. In the SPA line, we have some of the best anti-aircraft vehicles at this rank, with the Ostwind, VII-VIII, and Ostwind II. These three are notorious for their excellent anti-air as well as anti-tank capabilities, with excellent firepower in the form of a 37 and 20mm flak cannon. The Ostwind has a singular Flak 43 cannon, which can make it a bit harder to hit enemy aircraft, but its fast fire rate makes up for that factor. The VII-VIII, on the other hand, has a quad 20mm setup, which can tear anything to pieces with a couple bursts. As for the Ostwind 2, it's basically an Ostwind, but with two cannons side by side instead of one. A revolutionary design. They are all built on the same chassis as the Panzer IV, so armor is not amazing, mobility is decent enough that you can keep up with your allies, and either support them against tanks or protect them from enemy aircraft. Lastly, in the casemate tank destroyer line, we have the Jagdpanzer IV, Jagdpanzer 38T, and the Panzer IV-70. The Jagdpanzer IV and Jagdpanzer IV-70 are very similar tanks, their main difference being firepower, with the former featuring the Pak 39 and the latter featuring the Pak 42. They both have very low profiles and decent mobility, which lets them move around without drawing too much attention. Their frontal armor is also very good, provided you don't face too powerful cannons. You can block most shells coming your way, especially on the later vehicle, having an additional 2 cm on the upper front glacis. The Jagdpanzer 38T is similar, but with a taller hull and quite an angled design. Instead of stopping shells, you will be seeing them bounce off like there's no tomorrow. However, the vehicle, nicknamed Hetzer, does have quite a large weak point, that being its lower frontal plate. If an enemy hits it, you'll either be rendered immobile or die in one shot. With all three of these tanks, your go-to strategy should be medium range sniping, as their guns and armor are most suited for it. Coming up next is Tier 4, which contains the pinnacle of World War II German tank designs. The self-propelled anti-tank line turns into a light tank line, with the M109G and the Leichter Kampfpanzer M41. The M109G is almost identical to the American M109A1, except that it uses a shorter barreled gun and a 7.62mm MG3 instead of an M2HB 50 cal. It plays pretty much the same role as its American counterpart, so stay close to your allies and provide some heavy fire support. The West German M41 is another American export, and unsurprisingly, it's very similar to its original. It features a great top speed of about 70 km/h, as well as access to HEAT-FS shells and smoke grenades. This makes it very effective at flanking and ambushing, but enemies can knock you out in a single shot. Avoiding enemy detection is therefore key when using the M41. Now for something completely different. The heavy tank line features two variants of the Tiger II, another infamous German heavy tank. The Königstiger are some of the deadliest tanks that there are, with great armor and great firepower. They both feature the deadly 8.8 cm Kampfwagenkanone 43, similar to the one featured on the Nashorn and Waffträger tank destroyers. With up to 230 mm of penetration on their AP-HE shells, you will be a one-shot machine if you aim properly. The upper frontal plate is very strong against kinetic ammunition, but their lower frontal plate and turret cheeks are quite vulnerable weak spots, especially on the early turret variant. As a result, you need to both angle your hull and keep some distance, so medium range sniping is a viable strategy. You can find some success in brawling, but those King Tigers are pretty sluggish, and their side armor is not great. Next in the medium tank line, we have three late Panther variants, with the Panther Ausführung A, Ausführung G, and Ausführung F. The most noticeable difference compared to the D variant is their much needed turret traverse upgrade. As for the differences between the new variants, the G is nearly identical to the A, just with slightly better turret and hull armor. Ausführung F gets a revamp in its turret design, which results in a slightly slower turret traverse, but even more turret front armor. The Ausführung F also gets an optical rangefinder and a slightly faster reload rate. All three of these variants are quite capable and versatile, being decent at supporting, sniping, maybe even some flanking and brawling. You definitely need to know its limits though, those being their weak spots, lack of side armor, tall profile, and horrid reverse gears. Following the medium tanks, we have the anti-aircraft guns, with the Zerstörer 45 and Flakpanzer IV Kugelblitz. These two vehicles are pretty similar. They both feature Maschinenkanone 103 Mk103 cannons. They're both mounted on the Panzer IV hull, and they both don't have that much protection. The Zerstörer has a quad 30mm setup, so if you manage to land some hits, the enemy will disintegrate. That being said, the Mk103 are a lot harder to aim than the 20mm of previous anti-airs, and you need to lead a lot more with them. Like the 20mm though, the HVAP belts that the 30mm feature are very effective against the sides of tanks, so the support role is an option. However, as mentioned previously, the armor situation is not the best, especially on the Zerstörer, so stay out of sight. If you're having difficulties hitting targets, it is advisable to use the Wirbelwind or Ost-22. Lastly, in the casemate tank destroyer line, we have the Jagdpanther G1, Hanomag Henschel Jagdpanzer IV-5, Ferdinand, and Jagdtiger. The Jagdpanther is a surprisingly mobile tank destroyer with the long 8.8cm pack, the same one found on the Tiger II. Its armor is decent-ish, but powerful guns on some enemy tanks can punch straight through you without any issues. You might find some luck in both sniping and brawling, but make sure to keep your flanks protected. As for the Jagdpanzer IV-5, it cranks the armor to 0 and the mobility to 11. With 320mm of penetration on its heat-fin stabilized shell, the Jagdpanzer can make quick work of the slow, heavy tanks that it faces, and you can zoom around the battlefield with ease. As previously said, the armor is non-existent. Even heavy machine guns can and will knock you out. With both of these tanks, sniping and ambushing are recommended. The Ferdinand and Jagdtiger are the complete opposites of the previous two, with some of the best frontal armor there be are, but absolutely terrible mobility. Firepower is obviously excellent, with the long 8.8cm gun on the former and the devastating 128mm Pak 44 on the latter. These factors combined make the sniping role an obvious choice for both, and depending on your enemies, you will be nearly impenetrable from the front. In up tiers, however, you will be facing Heat FS pretty much every time, and it will ignore your armor. So if you find yourself facing more Cold War era vehicles, you need to stay out of sight. Other than that, flankers are the most obvious counters, so make sure to keep an eye out at all times. Now we move on to Tier 5. After the big and heavy tanks of World War II, the designs from here on will have quite a large change. Instead of relying on your armor, it will rely on your mobility for survival. In the light tank line, we have the Schützenpanzer Marder A1, Schützenpanzer BMP 1, Schützenpanzer Marder 1A3, and the DF-105. First, the Marders. These two are some interesting vehicles. Their 20mm cannons can't do much against tanks, however, they carry Milan anti-tank guided missiles, and those allow them to deal with pretty much anything they face. Their autocannons should mainly be used to take out trucks, gun barrels, and close-flying aircraft, while missiles should do most of your anti-tank work. Unfortunately, you only get 4 of these ATGMs, so you need to use them sparingly. The main difference between these two variants is that the Marder 1A3 gets an APDS belt, some slightly thicker armor and gunner thermals, which makes it better suited to fight other infantry fighting vehicles. They're good at supporting heavier allies and ambushing unsuspecting enemies. The Schützenpanzer BMP 1 is a comparable but different vehicle. While it also carries 4 ATGMs, it mounts a 73mm smoothbore low-velocity gun instead of an autocannon. This also has the ability to fire heat grenades that have up to 30cm of penetration. This makes it a lot more capable against tanks, so you can now use it in a more versatile way. Do keep in mind though that these heat grenades have very low velocity, so you should save your missiles for long range and use the grenades at shorter ranges. Once you unlock the mouse-guided missiles, you'll be especially formidable. Lastly, we have the DF-105. It's a combination of the Marder's hull and a French 105mm oscillating turret with an autoloader. This curious tank has a very deadly combo, that being great mobility, powerful shells, and the previously mentioned autoloader. You can fire one heat shell after another in just 5 seconds, and each of them have 40cm of penetration from any distance. Thanks to its speed, you can move all around the map, catch enemies by surprise too. It's an absolute menace in the flanking role and ambushing role, but it's a rather tall vehicle without any armor to speak of. If you stay aware of your surroundings though, you can eliminate one enemy after another. The heavy tank line turns into the medium tank line with the M48A2C Patton tank. This variant is similar to its American counterpart, being a good jack of all trades with decent firepower, mobility and armor. The most blatant downside of this tank though is the stock APCR round. While it does have pretty decent penetration, it doesn't stand a chance against angled armor, and its post-pen damage is basically non-existent. Before you even get parts, you might want to get its more powerful APHE round first, and pick up the Heat of S round later as well. And while I did say the armor is decent, you should definitely not rely on it. Its turret is actually pretty weak all round. All that being said, it's a good support tank that you can also do medium range sniping with. Before we move on to the main battle tanks, let's have a special feature on the mouse. Now this colossal tank was removed from a researchable line due to balancing problems, but it is able to be researched every now and again during events. The mouse shares many things with the American T95. Extremely thick armor, exceptionally poor mobility, but deadly firepower. It features the same 128mm cannon found in the Jagdtiger, as well as a secondary 75mm that can launch either heat or smoke shells when necessary. Anything that stands in its path will be obliterated by its sheer and raw firepower. But it's a conventional design stuck fighting non-conventional weapons, and that's where the balancing issues come in. The mouse regularly fights tanks with ATGMs, Heat FS, and even sometimes armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot shells, which completely nullifies the armor. It's also quite the cast magnet, as it's pretty much a sitting duck for enemy pilots. The mouse can either be incredibly fun to play, or just downright insufferable depending on which BR the snail puts you in. If you manage to get your hands on one, you can either keep your distance and snipe, or get up close and personal and be an absolute menace in brawling distance. Next, the second medium tank line, which turns into the main battle tank line with the Leopard 1. The Leopard is the complete opposite of the Tigers and Panthers. Instead of relying on thick armor to protect you, they focus on mobility to avoid taking hits in the first place. With the spaded Leopard 1 going up to 65 km per hour, you will have no trouble zooming around the map, engaging enemies from the side. In case you do get spotted though, get the hell out of there. A single hit is enough to take the Leopard 1 out in most cases. So deploy smoke, use your reverse gear, and leave. While their armor might be non-existent, the firepower is top-notch, with the 105mm Royal Ordnance L7 cannon, featuring APDS and Heat FS, with up to 400mm of pen. Combine that with its relatively quick reload, you can deal with pretty much anything you face. All in all, the Leopard 1 is a good flanker that is quite capable in any situation. In the several anti-aircraft line, we have the VII-1A4 and the Lux A2. These two rats aren't actually meant for the anti-air role. Instead, they're actually light reconnaissance vehicles that happen to have guns capable of shooting down planes. The VII-1A4 is like the Italian R3T20, being able to go at blisteringly high speeds with a fast-firing 20mm to boot. It's also one of the tiniest vehicles in the game, allowing it to hide and ambush unsuspected enemies. However, even some of the lightest machine guns will be able to pierce its hull, so avoid detection at all costs. The Lux takes everything that's good about the VII, makes them even better, with an even faster top speed and an equally fast reverse gear, although its acceleration is a bit lacking. It packs the same 20mm as its predecessor, and while it's not very powerful, you can still harass enemies from the side. The armor situation is, as expected, not great, but no armor is best armor. If you're not a big fan of the light tank line, these two will serve you well as ratty flankers and ambushers. If you're looking for anti-air though, you're better off going with the previous or the next higher tiers. Finally, we have the tank destroyer line, with the venerable Panzerhaubitze 2000, Raketenautomat, and Raketenjagdpanzer 2. The Panzerhaubitze is a self-propelled howitzer similar to the M109, with a devastating 155mm cannon and 9 kilograms of TNT in each high-explosive shell. With its autoloader, you can fling shells one after another in a mere 5 seconds, taking down enemies one by one. The Raketenautomat, on the other hand, is a great ambusher with dual 81mm Oerlikon rocket launchers that can reload incredibly quickly. It's not as fast as you would expect, but if you can find some cover in an urban area, you can launch one heat grenade after another and clean house. Lastly, for the Raketenjagdpanzer 2, it is an ATGM carrier with great mobility. If you played the Hanomag Jagdpanzer IV-5, this thing will feel very similar, but with the added benefit of firing ATGMs with up to 600mm of penetration from any distance. This combined with its top speed makes it an effective long-range sniper, although it might take some time to get used to the keyboard-guided missiles that you first get. Once you unlock the mouse-guided missiles, however, aiming gets way easier. All three of these vehicles don't really have much armor at all, all, so be careful when playing them. If you manage to get their playstyles down, however, you can use them quite effectively, and you can be a deciding factor on the battlefield for your team. After Tier 5 comes Tier 6, with some of the early modern tank designs of the Cold War. Starting off in the light tank line, we have the TAM, the Jagdpanzer Kürassier A2 and the Begleitpanzer 57. The TAM, or Argentine Medium Tank in English, is a classic light tank with great mobility and firepower, but lacking in armor. Its main armament is the stabilized 105mm cannon, the same one as on the Leopard 1, but it also features APFSDS, which makes it highly effective, especially when ambushing and using it as a scout vehicle. The Jagdpanzer Kürassier plays a bit differently though. Instead of zooming around the map, you should find a good place to stay in and use sniping as your main tactic. Its firepower is where it shines. It has got a 105mm cannon that has a 4-second autoloader. Because it lacks a stabilizer and its mobility isn't amazing, you should play it as a light sniper. If you're more a fan of being a rat though, the Begleitpanzer is the vehicle for you. The Bagelpanzer, as it's known in the community, has a great top speed both in forward and reverse gear, a tow anti-tank missile launcher, high explosive variable time shells against aircraft, and a stabilized 57mm Bofors main gun with a 0.3 second reload. Its only downside is the lack of armor, but that's to be expected. This thing can be an absolute menace if used in the right hands, and if you play it like a true flanker and ambusher, you can wipe out an enemy team before they even know what's happening. Next up in the medium tank line, we have the M48A2G-A2, Kampfpanzer 70, M48 Super, and the T-72 M1. These two German patents are the most upgraded modern variants of their kind, with a 105mm L7 cannon, access to APFSDS rounds, better engines, and more. The Super improves on the G-A2 in pretty much all aspects, with a 2-plane stabilizer, the deadly DM-33 Dart, better mobility, and better armor. That being said, they both play largely the same, being good at medium to long range sniping. After the speedy tanks like the Leopards or the TAM though, these two are a bit underwhelming in my opinion. That's where the Kampfpanzer 70 comes in. The Kampfpanzer 70 is a very fun tank that's capable of a lot of things. It plays very similarly to the Leopard A1, which we will talk about in the next line. The tank has great mobility, an amazing stabilized main gun with a 6-second reload, access to both APFSDS and gun-launched ATGMs, and a 20mm autocannon that can deal with aircraft and IFVs, and lastly, hydropneumatic suspension, making use of every single hill. The only downside of this thing is its armor, which is a recurring theme with German MBTs, so you should be used to it at this point. It can be used in a number of roles like flanking, sniping, supporting, and ambushing. And now for something completely different, with the T-72 M1. The East German variant of the T-72 is like its Soviet counterpart, with a small profile, some good frontal armor, and great firepower. Instead of the speedy playstyle of the previous couple of tanks, this thing is meant for holding down positions and advancing slowly. It's certain traverse, and some well-known weak spots hold it back though, so you need to play it carefully. Enemies at these ranks can easily flank you, so don't go rushing to the front lines with it. Next in the MBT line, we have the Leopard A1 and 1A5. These tanks will be the backbone of your lineups at this rank, as they're both very versatile and highly effective. They take the Leopard 1 and improve it in pretty much all aspects, with access to some great APFSDS rounds, a 2-plane stabilizer, and the same great mobility. These factors make the A1A1 and 1A5 excellent flankers. The latter variant gets a laser rangefinder, the aforementioned DM-33 rounds, as well as a gun thermal imager, which makes it even more effective. Like with the previous Leopard, armor isn't its strong suit, so you have to avoid getting spotted if you want to survive. If you know your role and stay on the move, you can easily rack up a lot of kills with both models. In the anti-air line, we have the well-known Flakpanzer Gepard. Unlike the previous two quote-unquote anti-airs, the Gepard features both a search and track radar, which makes it much easier to take enemy aircraft down. Its twin-stabilized 35mm Oerlikon autocannons can deal some serious damage to both air and ground targets, even against some MBTs if you're facing them from time to time, especially from the side. On top of all of that, it also has mobility similar to that of a Leopard. The downside to all of this is expectedly the armor. If an enemy sees you, it probably won't end well for you. So hide yourself from both tanks and aircraft if possible. Wait for enemy planes to get as close as possible, then blast them with a short burst so you don't reveal where you are. Lastly, in the tank destroyer line, we have the Raketenjagdpanzer II HOT. It plays nearly identical to the previous Raketenjagdpanzer, but with the mouse-guided HOT ATGM. They're a lot easier to aim than the keyboard-guided missiles, and they also have better penetration. The only downside is that it only gets one launch instead of two, so you have to be more careful. And finally, we reached tiers 7 and 8, some of the best modern tanks in the game. The light tank line contains the Radkampfwagen 90, the TAM 2C, and 2 modifications of the Schützenpanzer Puma. The Radkampfwagen is an 8-wheeled flanking machine with a top speed of 100 km an hour and the 105mm L7 cannon. With a couple mobility modifications, you can get anywhere on the map in a short amount of time. Its DM33 shells can also deal with most opponents that it faces, but it's a rather large vehicle and has pretty much no effective armor. Play it like the tier 2 Puma and stay out of sight. The TAM 2C is similar with decent mobility, access to 3rd gen thermal imagers, as well as the DM63 AP FSTS rounds. It's a textbook light sniper, as it lacks armor but has a great cannon. Its mobility allows it to get to some good vantage points early on as well. Its stock grind might be somewhat painful though, as its HFS shell is extremely underwhelming at that battle rating. And lastly, we have the Schützenpanzer Puma and Schützenpanzer Puma VIII-VIII. There was a time where this German IFV was absolutely clubbing everything, but after some BR changes, it's in a somewhat sad state. That being said, it's still pretty decent as a support vehicle with lots of gadgets like explosive reactive armor packages, active protection systems, laser warning systems, and 3rd gen thermal imagers. The VIII-VIII, so Very High Readiness Joint Task Force version of the Puma, also features the famous Spike LR2 tandem charge fire and forget ATGM, which is equipped in a twin launcher. Overall though, in the current state of the game, they're sitting at a bit higher of a BR, so they're stuck in a support role. In the medium tank line, we have the Leopard 2K, an experimental variant of the Leopard 2. It features some of the best mobility for an MBT with up to 72 km per hour going forward and in reverse. On top of that, it also has a 120mm Rheinmetall smoothbore cannon and a 20mm autocannon on the roof. Its biggest downsides are the meh stock heat FS shell, lack of decent effective armor, and no thermals, but it's still a very capable and effective tank. Now we reach the MBT line containing the Leopard 2, some of the best tanks in the entire game. This line starts with the Leopard 2A4, which is a great upgrade from the A1A1. It features better mobility with devastating 120mm Rheinmetall L44 cannon, thermal imagers for the gunner, as well as some decent turret protection. The 2A5 improves on the 2A4 with access to deadly DM53 AP FSDS shell, as well as the nearly impenetrable turret front. Mobility is slightly hindered due to these add-ons, so you're better off sniping in a hull down position. With more than 600mm of penetration, it can easily eliminate any tank it faces. And combined with its armor, the 2A5 becomes a force to be reckoned with. The Leopard 2A6 features the longer L55 cannon, which gives the darts even more penetration than before, making it one of, if not the most powerful cannon in the game. The PSO, or the Peace Support Operations variant, is pretty much the same as the 2A5, just with some extra armor on the side, access to a dozer blade, as well as a 50 cal machine gun. It's honestly nothing too special, especially compared to what's next. The Leopard 2A7V is currently one of the best and most competitive tanks in the game. On top of everything its predecessors have, it also features some great armor, the aforementioned L55 cannon, as well as Gen 3 thermals and spall liners. Its mobility, while not as amazing as some of the earlier models, is still sufficient to get you from point A to point B. The same weak points are still prevalent though, namely the turret ring, gun mantlet, and lower frontal plate. Despite these shortcomings, any seasoned tanker can use the 2A7 to annihilate anything they face. After the MBTs, we have the SPAAs with the Flakpanzer Ocelot, Gepard 1A2, Flugabwehr-Raketenpanzer Roland, OSA AK, Strehler 10M, and the Flugabwehr-Raketensystem Roland auf Radkraftfahrzeug. Try saying that 3 times fast. Since there are a lot of vehicles to cover, we'll do another speed round. The Ocelot is a fast and not so furious missile SPA that carries the Stingers. These are notorious for being rather inconsistent, so might suffer a little bit until you unlock the proximity fused Stingers, Stinger K. The Gepard Gepard 1A2 is almost the same as the regular Gepard, but with 4 Stinger missiles strapped to its turret. While they're not the best missiles, like I said, they certainly are a welcome addition as opposed to just having autocannons. One thing to note as well is that the Gepard 1A2 gets access to a laser rangefinder, making long-range ground fire easier. The Flak Panzer I, on the other hand, features the Roland surface-to-air missiles, which are maneuverable and have quite a long range. The downside is that it can only fire 2 missiles before having to reload, and the missiles lose their speed very fast when turning. The OSA AK and Strehler 10M are a pair of East German anti-aircraft missile systems that are very effective. They carry the 9M33M3 and 9M37M missiles respectively, which are both more responsive and have a longer effective range than the Flak Panzer Roland. And lastly, we have the Flak Grad, which is a Roland missile system on top of a German 8x8 truck. The VT-1 Crotale missiles it carries are a significant upgrade from the Roland 2 or 3, with a longer range as well as better speed and G-overload. However, it is the single tallest vehicle in the game, and even light machine guns can easily take it out. That being said, it's still a potent anti-air vehicle. And lastly, in the tank destroyer line, we have the VII-1A2. Like its namesake, the VISL is very tiny, very fast, and an absolute menace to society if used correctly. It can carry a couple types of the TOW-2 anti-tank missile, including the tandem charge and top attack variants. The rat playstyle is its natural calling. With its small size, you can hide in some sneaky positions the enemy wouldn't even think of checking. If someone looks in your general direction though, you're probably gonna end up destroyed, so make sure to stay out of sight, as your armor is only rated for AK fire. Finally, we reach the conclusion, starting with the pros and cons. German tanks across all the ranks feature some of the best firepower in the entire game, paired with good optics. Whether you're in a medium tank, a heavy tank, or a tank destroyer, you'll find some great cannons that can deal with any opponent. Naturally, this also makes them one of the best snipers in the game. Along with this, Germany has some pretty solid lineups like 5.7 and 6.7, which have stood the test of time for many years. Not only that, but you have some of the best top tier tanks as well. Lastly, Germany is part of the so-called Big Three, which means they will get new tanks pretty much every update. One of the most blatant cons of the tank tree is the lack of mobility until tier 5. Each new tank is heavier and better armor than the last one, but comes at the cost of having rather poor top speeds and acceleration. This also means that you will be forced on 1 or 2 playstyles until rank 5. The tree is also one of the biggest in game, being even bigger than the American one, so it'll take a decent while to get to top tier. Being one of the most popular nations, the German tank tree is also quite popular among newbies, which might lead to some questionable performance by your teammates, especially in relation to World War II heavy tanks. Ask me how I know. Now for the rankings. Like previously stated, German tanks are best suited for longer range action, with brawling being an option for some of them. Since the tree emphasizes keeping your distance, supporting is also a bit neglected. Flanking is obviously not too much of an option in your heavy tanks, but after tier 5 it'll be your main priority. As for the tiers, the tree is quite decent across all ranks. Tiers 5 and 6 are a bit lacking when it comes to lineups due to a lack of vehicles, but otherwise all the tanks are solid. For the close air support, while there are some great options like BR-409s and Me-410s, they're just not as versatile when compared to American planes. The top tier cast is also somewhat lacking, with the exception of the amazing Eurofighter Typhoon. Their anti-airs, however, are pretty solid, like the Wirbelwind, Ostwind, etc., but their top tier choices are somewhat lackluster compared to other nations. Now lastly, should you play the German tank tree? If you're a beginner, it's a pretty decent choice. While there aren't as many options as playstyles, the German tanks will teach you to be strategic, not to rush in blindly. With their great cannons, beginners can also learn the basics of aiming and sniping. If you're looking for a new nation to grind, it's a no-brainer. German tanks are among the best and most popular in game, with the infamous Tiger, Panther and more. Once you get to top tier, you will also have some very competitive vehicles at your disposal. And if you're looking to have some fun, German tanks are a great choice. While the slow and steady playstyle isn't for everybody, the tank tree has pretty much perfected it, and any player can find some enjoyment with their selection of snipers. If you're looking for some recommendations, SK suggests the Tiger H1 and Hetzer. Now my personal recommendations are definitely the Tigers as well, due to their playstyle making them very hard to kill when angled. For the higher tiers, I would definitely suggest giving a shot to 10.7, especially since you can use the Tornado, event version that is, and the tech tree Phantom with Maverick air-to-ground missiles missiles at 10.7 together with Leopard 2A4, which is an absolutely solid lineup. But I think that's about all for this video, so time to wrap it up. The German tree is mostly beginner friendly, requires some tactics, so you have to learn how to use vehicles. I would suggest looking at video guides for this, they're very useful. For angling the tiger, you can consider looking at an online version of the actual Tigerfibel book, since it does feature the correct angle. And, well, stay frosty, lead your shots, and have fun. And German bias doesn't exist. It's just a tank. Neither does Russian bias. It's just modeling, I guess.